Hello, welcome again to the Coach's Corner. We do have a new night. Of course, normally you're used to seeing me on Wednesday nights, but to make it more convenient and try to increase the views, we're switching it to Sunday nights. With us tonight is someone that I'm extremely excited to have on with us. He's been a part of this Big Ben football culture for years. On the high school prep level and on the collegiate level. He's done a lot of amazing things. Coach Ryan Smith.
Hey man, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Man, thank you, Coach. You've been around this area for a while, and now being at FAMU, it's been amazing for me to watch the progression of our FAMU defense underneath you. So I'm excited to talk to you, Coach.
Oh man, shoot. It's not me, it's those kids. They play hard, they get after it. I mean, it's fun to coach those guys and go in the building every day with them and the assistants, and it just all works together.
Yeah, like Jimmy's and Joe's make a world of difference in the X's and O's.
Yeah, I can coach them. I can coach those guys that run fast really, really well.
Like having good Jimmy's and Joe's is kind of like good barbecue, right? Like your meat matters. Now, if you got the wrong meat, you don't prepare the meat right, then of course the barbecue is gonna be bad. But if you got hot dogs on the grill, yeah, it's a little bit
Yeah,
different than have a steak on the grill.
it just ain't gonna hit the same, is
It
it?
ain't gonna hit the same. But if
it,
you can't mess up that steak with the wrong seasoning though.
those blitzes hit a little different with Johnny Chaney and Isaiah Major in there. So it, it definitely helps.
Yeah, coach. And especially me being a defensive minded person and seeing all the things that you've done with especially those linebackers and the different formations and packages that y'all can match up with. It's exciting to watch you all play, coach. So kudos to everything that you're doing over there. You've been doing a great job, and of course the whole coaching staff. So
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
oh yeah. So we're me. I'm wrapping up my spring break right now, and it's been it's been a whirlwind for me this week. I've been running left, right, up and down, and in 360s. We went down to Lakeland and went to Legoland, and then my wife found Peppa Pig Park.
Oh, I didn't even know that existed.
That's the same thing I said when she told me we were going.
I'm glad my kids are out of that stage. When you got real young kids, like sometimes you got to go back to work to get a vacation. So
Oh,
they keep you running.
they keep you going. But yeah, so we went to the Pepper Pig Park and then the Lakeland Science Museum and then the urban area and all that stuff like that. Like it's we had a busy week, but I'll tell you this much. Pepper Pig Park was the cleanest park I've ever been in.
That's probably because there's not a lot of people going to it, isn't it?
Coach, man, let me tell you, Coach, they had like a change, like a changing station that was it was like it looked like a science lab. They had free diapers all over the wall. Walked in the bathroom, Coach. They had a cherry scented bathroom that with like air freshener coming out the vents.
My boys did their time with Peppa Pig, but we've grown out old Peppa. I'm happy for that. I was
Oh
never
man,
a Peppa Pig fan.
oh man, Coach,
Sorry for Peppa Pig fans out there, but I never got into Peppa.
Coach, yeah, I can't. If I could hit fast forward for 30 minutes every day Peppa Pig comes on, that
Yeah,
and Bluey. But yeah, Coach. So now y'all were on spring break too. Did you get a chance to enjoy it?
we were. We went down to like you said, I'm from the area. My parents still live in Perry, Florida. So I'm blessed every day to get to go hang out, or every break get to go hang out with them. So we went down there for a few days, and then we went up to South Carolina to watch them at practice for a couple of days, and last couple of days we've just kind of been resting up, getting ready to get back into spring ball and ready to get back going.
Yes, sir. Now, um, quick question. I want to jump into, like, we were talking about, early life and not early life, but our personal life.
Sure.
And our personal life, of course, a lot of times influences what we do professionally. How did you how did you end up getting into the coaching profession? I know most coaches, like for me, my dad was a coach,
Sure.
and was always around sports, and most coaches usually had some type of connection to a coach that was a little bit more profound. But how did you get into coaching?
So, it's funny you asked that. Back when I was probably in middle school, I was going to a youth camp. It was called Ridgecrest. It was up in North Carolina. And for whatever reason, when I left that camp, my dad was driving us home. And I told him, I said, I'm going to be a coach. And my whole goal the whole time was really just to go back home and be the head coach back home. And, God works in mysterious ways. He led me down different avenues. And now I'm back home here in Tally and coaching the Rattlers. But I've always, my whole life, I wanted to get into coaching. And like I said, my getting into it, my whole goal was just to coach the Bulldogs. I wanted to coach the Bulldogs into a winner. And, God always takes you further than you think you can go. And, it's been a heck of a ride.
Yes, sir. Now, when you say Bulldogs, for those people that aren't familiar, you're talking about Taylor County Bulldogs, right?
Taylor County Bulldogs. That was growing up. That was my dream, was to be the head coach of Taylor County Bulldogs. So we fulfilled that one as well.
Yes, sir. What years were you at Taylor County as a coach?
Oh man, it goes, those years run together now. But I was there, I want to say 12, 13. I want to, yeah, 12, 13. And then when I went with Coach Cottrell over to a little school in Mobile called Chickasaw, and from there I went to Alabama. So I got into college football after Alabama or Mobile.
What'd you do at Alabama? What were you doing while you were there?
Man, I was a fly on the wall. I walked in, and quite honestly, I showed up with the recruiting office, and I just didn't leave. And they put me, once they found out, well, really not they, Coach Cristobal. He knew me because he signed one of my kids from Gainesville High. And he's like, well, you're going to help me. So I started helping the O-line and working in the recruiting office. I was working, had two bosses. So my family was back at my parents' house. People don't realize that, but for 9.5 months, I worked for free. And my wife and my two kids lived at my parents' house. And I rented a bedroom for $150 a month from some stranger I didn't even know. He was an old retired middle school PE teacher. And, I put it in my mind that when the coaches walked in, I was going to be working. And when they went home at night, I was going to be working. And whatever I was given, I made sure I got it done. Made sure it got done the right way, which that job led to 2 years at Florida. And then that led to coming to FAM with Coach Simmons. And, man, it's funny, being Coach Simmons knew each other from my time at Gainesville High. So you never burn bridges, because you never know who's going to circle back around to you.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that I think that's the coaching industry in general. It's a
It's a lot
small.
smaller world than you realize. It's
Yeah,
definitely is.
yeah, and that's one thing I'm realizing really quick. And so, of course, you've coached on the high school level, of course, playing on the high school level. What changes have you seen in high school sports?
Man, it's so. Of course, everybody throws the ball a whole lot more, but what's changed? Probably the transfer rules changed a little bit. Kids can move around a lot more than they used to. But I also think kids, they do a whole lot more than they used to. You got 7-on-7 year round now. You got guys going to speed trainers. You got guys going to camps. Back when I played, there was no camps. I remember going to my first recruiting combine. My senior year was at Mainland High School, and I mean that was Reeboks, and Emmett Smith started with Dwight Thomas. And that's when they had the pumps and they had these little booties you put on your feet and slid side to side as a trainer. Like, it was a long time ago now, but it's definitely changed. I think kids throw the ball and catch the ball a whole lot better than they used to. I think, offense is more complex than it was back then. Yeah, it's definitely changed. Definitely changed. And I think you see it at our level, and I think you're starting to see it in the NFL level, because you see now quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts and, Patrick Mahomes, like those guys are changing the game. It's not just the drop back passer that it used to be.
Yeah, definitely. Now with 7-on-7, have you seen a change in the players' ability to tackle in open space? Is it better? Is it worse? Or because a lot of guys are playing 7-on-7 in the offseason and
Yeah,
really taking off.
I don't think that's as much as the 7-on-7. Is how much you're limited now as far as protecting the players. I know in college, we get 2 scrimmages where we can actually tackle to the ground before we go play our first game. So, I think tackling is a lost art form because you're not allowed to tackle anymore. And, a lot of it, we had this conversation the other day. A lot of it comes down to the fact that you're protecting your players. If you look at the combine, there was a D tackle from Northwestern that ran a 4.5 at 285, 290 pounds. Well, that's probably 4.5 is around 21 to 22 miles an hour. So if you could imagine 285 pounds hitting you at 22 miles an hour, like something's got to give. So I think a lot of it is, player safety. And I think that's needed now. Whereas back in the day, like when I played, I was one of the strongest guys on the team. I think I weighed like 215 maybe. No, I'm sorry. I weighed 200 pounds when I played in high school. So that's a whole lot different game than it was back in those times.
Yeah, yeah, that's those are all great points, and that's something that you start talking about that. For my program, we're about to start a fundraiser because we're limited on players, and a lot of our guys have to go both ways. So we're about to purchase catapult systems to put on our guys, just to see how we're making it through the week and make sure I monitor our practice time and
Yeah.
output. We were talking earlier about the limitations on practice, and you have to be effective and have a quality. You gotta get in and out quicker, and so um,
I know Alabama, when I got to Alabama, they were using catapults. And this was really before it was GPS. But when they first started, they found out that, Amari Cooper run like 9 miles in a practice one day. Well, you
mm-hmm.
can't run 9 miles 5 days a week and then you're going to be fresh on Saturday, And I think at your level, our level, and the NFL level, you only get so many of those game days. And what's the ultimate goal? Is it the training, or is it to be the best you can be on that game day?
Right.
And I think, in order to get the guys to be the best they can be on that game day, we do have to monitor some of the workload that they put in to keep them fresh, because it is a long season.
Yeah.
You put together, when I was in Gainesville, Ohio, we made it to the Final Four. And when it was said and done with, I think we played 15, 16 games that year, counting the Classic. And, I mean, that's an NFL season.
Right.
We started in August and we were done in December. So it's a long road if you do it, and you're fortunate enough to get some breaks and go a long way.
Yeah. Yeah. You're definitely right. We talked about the high school game, but what about some of the most dramatic changes you've seen in collegiate athletics? That's changing so much every day. It seems like over the last 5 years. What are some of the changes that you've seen, and how has it impacted you as a coach and the team?
It's probably in the bigger FBS level. Your big time P5s. I think the portal has changed things a lot, or the what is it, the NIL deals.
Mhm.
That's changed a lot of deals, a lot of different things. Also, I think people don't really realize it, but your official visits in the summer now. So, summers were nothing but all they were used for was, camps and evaluations. Well, now you got camps, evaluations, but you've worked in official visits as well. So that's changed the game a lot as far as your recruiting and, kids staying at one place or where they're picked up at. And, unfortunately, I think a lot of kids move too quick. They they walk in as freshmen, and I've seen kids, they don't even give it a chance. Like they show up in June and they're leaving in December. And I think one thing you always got to remember when you start in college, it's no different than when you were a freshman in high school walking in that locker room for the first time. You're going against some grown men now, and it takes time sometimes to get yourself on the field where you want to be. But I would say that's probably changed the most as far as off the field. I think on the field is just everybody's ability to throw the ball better than they used to. I think back when I played, you had big old heavy linebackers and you were clogging gaps and people were running ISOs and, it was a run first. Everything was run first. Well, now it's pass first and we're going to rally, run when we have to. I think that's changed a lot.
Yeah.
People are more comfortable throwing the ball than they used to be.
Yeah, that's definitely, especially in high school, we're seeing that, and guys, a lot of kids want to throw the ball more, and I guess scoring is exciting, and so.
But and I still think though it all comes back to, blocking, tackling, and protecting the ball. If you've got to do those three things to be good in football, and no matter how much we try to make it where it's different, it always comes back to the line of scrimmage. And if you look at who wins the national championships every year, it's always those teams that are really good up front.
Right.
Just that's just my opinion, though.
No, I mean it's pretty spot on, Coach. And you start talking about your opinion, and I guess your opinion is always influenced by your experiences. So, in your personal development, what were some of your experiences? You talked about your time at Alabama. You hinted at your time at Gainesville High School and Taylor High School, Taylor County High School, and then your time at UF. But all those experiences, can you talk about those and how that impacted who you are as a coach today?
Yeah, I mean, shoot. God, I've been fortunate to be around some really, really good coaches. And, as young coaches, you walk into this thing thinking you got to have all the answers. And you really don't. You really need to sit back and learn from those guys that's been doing it the longest. He's a local coach, and I learned as much from him as I have anybody by the name of Barney Myers. He's coached at I think he's the head coach at Leon for a short period, or he worked at Leon. He wasn't the head coach. I'm sorry. He's worked at Childs. He's worked at Madison, but he's a local guy here in the area. And I learned as much from him, just handling players, handling young men, getting the most out of them. I probably learned as much from him as anybody. Then, my time as a head coach, usually when we have answers, it's because we messed something up somewhere along the line and we learned from it. So, you always think you're ready to be a head coach till you're in those shoes. And then you find out real quick, you don't have all the answers that you think you had, but
Oh
that's
man,
all part of the growing, right?
yeah.
And to say I never made mistakes, that's crazy. I think I was as prepared as I could have been to be a head coach. And then when I got in that seat, it changed a little bit, right?
Hey, it
So,
changed quick. It changed quick.
yeah. I think every assistant coach has done it. Like, oh, I wouldn't do that. Yeah. Wait till you get a head coach.
Coach, let me tell you. So I think after like it had to be like the first 4 or 5 games. I called Coach Hickman and said, "Hey, Coach, I just want to say because being an AD is different. I tell you, being a head coach is a whole lot more difficult than being an AD. I'll tell you that much right now. So, and I was a head coach in track and cross country and an assistant coach in football. And man, I called Coach Hickman. I said, Coach, I just want to let you know, man, if I gave you a hard time, man, I apologize. Man, it is different, man. It is
Yeah,
different. It's a lot of work, but it is extremely rewarding,
it-
and you get a chance to, like you said, when you start talking about managing and handling young men, I think that's the most enjoyable part.
yeah.
Um,
When you see men grow, like, we've all had those guys that they just couldn't figure it out, and then all of a sudden they do, and then they become successful and productive, and like, or they call you and they ask, coach, man, I just want you to know I'm doing this or I'm doing that. I think that's more rewarding than the games themselves. We all were competitive, we all want to win, but in order, just the fact that you help somebody advance in life, I think that's probably the most important thing we do as coaches. And you got to think, in our profession, football players are usually the roughest, toughest guys. So they're usually the hardest, shells to crack. But when you do, it's like you said, it's probably the most rewarding of the whole job. And, that's to be able to do that, when I was in high school, it was getting guys into college. That was always rewarding to me on signing day, because that showed that they had gone to class and they had gotten their ACT, SAT scores, and they had passed, and they also performed on the field. And, those are always exciting times. Here it's when they call you and they tell you they got their own company. I got one linebackers that's he started his own company. I got another one he's a coach now. He's a high school coach out in Texas now. Uh, you know, when you watch Isaiah Land go to Indy and do well, or Marquise Bell running down on a kickoff, like, it ranges from everything from being able to play in the NFL, the USFL, the XFL, to, like I said, they own their own business, or they're a high school coach because they just want to stay around football. I mean, all those are rewarding. But I don't even know where we're going with this one right now. But but like you said, that is probably the most. That is not it's the most rewarding of the whole thing.
Yeah, coach. I mean, it really is, and I think, like I said, we take those experiences with those young men, and then watching other coaches build up young men, and that's one thing that um, we all got a chance get a chance to do every day. Really quick to go off on a tangent. What was it like? Just being in the coaches meetings and whatnot at the university level with Coach Simmons, or what is it like with Coach Simmons, with Coach Saban, and with all the other head coaches that you've worked with? What is that experience like? Talk to me about that the meeting structure.
Well, it's core. Like, every coach is different, and I always tell coaches this all the time. Like, you can't be somebody you're not. You got to be you. So, each coach is different in the way they do things. But it's, fortunately for me, the staff rooms I've been in, I've always been asked my opinion. And, like I tell people, don't ask if you don't want to know the truth, because I'll tell you the truth. I mean, I'm too old to be telling stories. But, it's usually like it's down to business, because there's a whole lot of work that's got to get done, and you don't want to spend a whole lot of time, chasing rabbits, as the old saying goes.
Right. Um, Continuing on with the professional development part, how important was the education process for you? And what did it look like going from high school to college, and really increasing your football IQ?
So what I learned when I got to Alabama was I didn't know what I didn't know. Now I went in with the mindset that I didn't have any answers and I was going to learn as much as I could learn. And I think when you take that mindset, like, you can learn a whole lot. And like I said, what I thought I knew, a lot of it was wrong as wrong could be. And, it was, I mean, it opened my eyes, but it also helped me, because, like I said, I walked in with, all I'm going to do is learn. And I've been fortunate enough to, like, if some of the rooms I've been allowed to sit in for however long, I mean, I've been a very, very blessed man. And stuff that I learned from, and if Alabama worked on the offensive side of the ball. So I learned what gives them problems. So we use that now. Uh, Whereas on defense, I learned, I was in there with Jeff Collins and Coach Randy Shannon and Coach Chris Rump. Like all these guys are in the NFL or successful coaches or have been successful. I mean, they were head coaches at one time, for crying out loud. So both instances, I was like, I'm just gonna learn. Like I'm soaking it all in, and I got notebooks on top of notebooks where I just took notes, and I learned a whole bunch of ball in those. It was really 3 years, but it was a blessed 3 years.
Yeah, yeah. I know that grind is tough, and that's something that, of course, I think it's starting to trickle down to the high school level because the level of football is increasing all around. Um, in this area, we had some guys like Coach Tyson, who's coached at the college level, who has
Sure.
a great football mind, and that's for me as a head coach. That's probably one of the things that I have to constantly try to do and figure out is increase my football IQ, because it's we have some good coaches around here, and we have some good mentors like you and Coach Simmons and Coach Yak at FSU and so many others that are willingly open to share their drill and skill work. So I appreciate that that
And
education that you all give me.
man, shoot, anytime. Love having you guys come out. I mean, it's the better that we all are together, the better it is for our players. And at the end of the day, I mean, what are we here for? We're here for us. We're here for them.
Definitely here for them. Um, your mentors, who were some of your mentors that you said, look, I'm going to take this from him, I'm going to take this from her, or whoever it is? Who were some of your mentors that you said, hey, I like the way they do this?
Well, I tell people all the time, I learned probably how to be a college coach by, and he was the first guy that I was ever with, was a guy that's up north in the Canadian League by Mark Nelson. And that was my very first coaching job at Valdosta State. I made $1,000 for a whole semester. And I remember him, I was stapling the scouting reports together, and I was just stapling, just regular staple. And he was like, hey, if you don't do this right, they're not going to look at it. So now, even to this day, when I staple something together, that dang staple's got to be in the top left-hand corner. It's got to be square. I mean, that was, I still to this day fall back on that when I'm stapling papers. But when you put stuff together to give to your kids, like he said, and what his point was, if it's half done, then they're not going to look at it. Whatever you give to them, it's got to be done right. So I'm a stickler for those things. Moving up, fast forward, like I told you with Coach Barney Myers, I learned how to handle players, how to get the most out of them. Fast forward from there, Coach Cristobal, I learned from him organization, how to, recruit, how to keep it all. Because when you're recruiting, it gets to be a whole lot of different people, different names, how to, organize your time and organize your recruiting list so that you don't forget about somebody. You don't not hit a guy up for a few days. Um, but you also still got to get your coaching work done too, right? I mean, you still got to win games or nobody wants to come play for you, or you don't have a job to bring them to. Coach Chris Rump, I learned that's probably where I got my personality, how I could learn to be myself. Coach Shannon was a lot of, how to mess with your fronts, matching coverages, all those things. And I still call those guys to this day and ask questions. When I got a question or something I want to try, I always run it by them. Because man, that's some pretty good resources there.
Yes, sir. Yeah, you hit it, and then actually a perfect segue into our next topic is recruiting, which,
Mhm.
for my guys, and I think anybody in the Tallahassee area, like everybody wants to know about the recruiting process. That's a hot topic. Um, how do you all, you know, work and identify your big task in the recruiting process? Like, what does that look like for you all?
So, before you just start, before you go out, you need to know what you need. What a lot of people don't realize is it's not just running around grabbing every player available, right? You got to have so many O linemen, you got to have so many D tackles, you got to have so many defensive ends, you got to have so many receivers, running backs, linebackers, corners. So that's where you start. You start with, what do we need? And then from that point forward, so like this past year, we needed some defensive ends that could rush the passer. We needed a couple of D tackles. We needed a backer. We needed a couple of safeties. We needed a couple of corners, like on defensively. So once we went through what was leaving, what we had on the roster now, we said these are the positions that we need. Now it was just a matter of going out and finding the guys that, fit what you do. Not, I think a lot of times people take it personally, it's not that as much as you need to make sure that you have the people that fit what you do. So for us, our whole defense is based off speed. So I got to find guys that can run. If they can't run, they're going to have a hard time playing here. The tackle wise, we look for twitchy guys because we're a 4 down. We play half a man. We're a penetrating front. So a big 380-pound two gap guy he's not going to excel here. So I think after you find what you need, then you find the different players that fit what you do. Now it's just a matter of going through and ranking who the guys it is that you want, and then going and getting them, going and recruiting them, trying to get them to become a Rattler.
Yeah, and that's one thing I try to explain to as many parents as I can is what that process actually looks like. And then I think a lot of guys now sometimes have a jaded sense of where they can play.
Yeah.
And so for example, if you're a receiver, you're a DB, and you say, "Oh, I can play at FAMU." I played against that high school that receiver last year, and I locked him up, and he's doing well against them. But they don't realize that y'all may not be looking for DBs this year.
That's right.
Are that type of DB? You may be trying to get long, and that DB may not be tall, or you may be trying to get, like you say, faster, and the DB may be a more so size guy, hitter guy, whatever. And so a lot of times there's so many different things that go into that pot, and kids don't always remember that. So the best thing that a lot of kids can do is try to make themselves as well rounded as they can. In
And
terms,
you want, like as a player, like you want a place that fits you, right? You don't want to go to a place that doesn't fit your skill set. Now, like for us, you will say DBs, our corners, we have a boundary corner and a field corner. Well, our boundary corner is going to be a bigger body, so like we got Winston Frazier that's 6'3" and he's 190 pounds. Well, our field corner is Kendall Bowler. Well, Kendall is more 6'1", about 180, 185, but he's better and he's more agile in space, right? Whereas our free safety, 2 years ago was Marquise Bell. Well, I mean, he's 200 pounds, right? Whereas our field safety is Javen Morgan, who he may be 180 pounds, 185 pounds, but he's faster. So, it's different positions as well, right? And at the end of the day, as far as recruiting, we're all looking to get, the best player that you can get for that position.
Yeah, big shout out to Javen. I actually coached Javen when I was at Florida High, so I gotta give him a shout out. He's doing great things out there.
He's done really, really well. We're proud of Javen.
Yeah, Coach, I got some stories on Javen. I gotta tell you them later.
Well, me being from Perry, I tease him all the time because they say it's a rivalry now, Taylor and Florida High, but Taylor hadn't beaten them in a while, right?
Coach, man, I gotta tell you,
I always tease Coach Hickman because my last playoff game as a head coach, Coach Hickman beat me to death and sent me to college football.
Coach, let me tell you. So, what was so funny, man? When I was the AD, um, they like you said, it's I don't know why there's so much animosity between Florida High and Taylor County. I have no idea. I don't know what the dynamics, what happened. I have no idea. But Taylor County came over to Florida High, and I was sent over there because they had artificial noise makers.
Yeah.
And you're not supposed to have those in the game. And it was a good atmosphere for the first quarter, and then it got ugly. But I went over there. It's like, hey,
Good luck getting that out of their hands.
oh man, let me tell you, I got cussed out so hey, I got cussed out so bad. I got man, that was, and it's like, that's Taylor County, Florida High. It's to tell you the truth, that was a good little rivalry because it was fun.
Yeah. Yeah. For
Yeah.
whatever, I guess, because they both, I don't know, but it turned into a little rivalry there for a while.
And, I think it was because for a while it was the two schools were playing each other consistently, sometimes twice a year in the regular season and in playoffs, and they were usually good games. And so I think that's kind of what kind of built that up, and then it just, I don't know, somehow it turned into a love-hate relationship.
Until Coach Hickman beat me and sent me to college football, right?
Yeah. So, and anyway, getting back on track, with the recruiting, what do you look for in your players? You talked about the boundary and the field corners and boundary and field safety. What about your linebackers and your D line? You talked about your D tackles being twitchy.
Yeah. All of it, we're looking for guys that can run.
Right.
We talked about how the game has changed, and we talked about how you got to be able to play in space. And so, we're looking for guys that can run. Don't want guys that are stiff, that, like a D lineman. If they're stiff and they can't change, or really linebackers as well, if they can't change directions, pass rushers, if they're stiff ankles, stiff hips, and they can't turn the corner to finish a sack on a quarterback, linebackers. Now, you're not as much worried about size as you are speed, but they still got to be able to hold up, right? So you can't, like our linebackers right now are all anywhere between 220, 230, but they'll all run anywhere between 20 and 21 miles an hour on the catapults. So, that's moving pretty good. D tackle wise, we do have some big bodies. We'll have a couple of big bodies, but most of those guys need to be able to rush the passer, because in our league, and the league, or really in college football now, you got to be able to get pressure on the quarterback.
Right.
Defensive end wise, like who was the Isaiah Land, he walked in at 185, 190, but he played most of his time around 215, 225. But he had a little extra burst, that burst, that's what you're looking for. When I say burst, you see a guy running and all of a sudden he can hit a gear and go finish a play. Those are the things you're looking for.
Yeah. Um, I think for the people here in the local community, we've seen the development of FAMU football program.
Mm-hmm.
And it from the outside looking in, the culture just seems so positive. Coach Simmons is so polished all the time. Of course, you always being so hospitable, and every coach just seems to be really embedded in that culture. Can you talk about how you all created that culture up there?
Yeah, I think what the key word to it all is family, right? Uh, One thing that I think Coach Simmons does that you're not allowed to do at most places is you're allowed to bring your family around. So, my little boy has been working out all summer with the team since he was probably 9 years old. And I think that does two things, right? I think it lets your family be a part of the guys, but it also lets the guys be a part of your family. So now there's a sense of belonging, right? There's a sense of family. There's a sense of togetherness. And, you know, when we go against each other, we compete like crazy. But when it's time to have each other's back, we have each other's back. And I think a lot of times in today's game, you know, not all teams have that. And I think the fact that our guys are, you know, I tell guys when we recruit them, like, listen, if you don't do it right, they're gonna call you out, and you got to be okay with that. Now, on the flip side of that, if they're not doing it right, they expect you to call them out. But now you do have to earn that right. And I think the fact that they feel comfortable enough with each other to do that, the work ethic and the workload that these guys put in is unbelievable. And I think the fact that they are so tight and they are so together, you know, it only helps in recruiting. You know, when we bring guys in, like I tell them all the time, when you come on a visit, you're not going to want to leave, because our guys do such a great job of selling the program. Because, you know, when I say it's a family, it is a family. I mean, we're all together in this thing, and it's truly remarkable, and it's something it's been special to be a part of.
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, of course, playing at FAMU and being a part of that family, um, you know, and it's you know, you're talking about recruiting. I got a story. When I was playing at FAM, I was a little bit more rambunctious than I am now, and we took some guys out to a uh, a social event, and some things got a little ruckus, and I remember uh, it was the craziest thing because we of course the football team had each other's back, and it got a little crazy, and at the end of the recruiting visit, every guy on that trip committed
Yeah.
on that weekend because they just saw how we were as a family. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And so now if
And
our coaches,
I think that bleeds from like the campus in general, right? I mean, if you go anywhere with the Rattler hit, somebody's gonna say, "Hey, Rattler!" Like, I mean, that's just it's all one. The whole thing is one big family. And I got a buddy that runs clinics, and he says anytime I post anything with FAMU, I get more hits on that than anything I post.
yep,
And, you know, it all works together. I mean, it really does.
yeah, yeah, because but you're really right, man. It's FAMU is an amazing atmosphere. It's an amazing college. I'm so fortunate that I decided to go there as well. So,
And
uh,
game days are something different, ain't it? I
yeah.
all the time. I say we'll play the Green Bay Packers at Bragg.
Hey, I used to
It's
love playing
now
at
that
Bragg.
everybody's leaving, right?
And Bragg playing at Bragg was, I mean, that because one thing that people don't realize is, um, what I wholeheartedly believe, there is a different culture in Florida than anywhere else,
Yeah.
and from the smack talking to the bravado to the just the charisma that people from Florida have, and bringing people from out of state into Bragg Stadium a lot of times is a bit different. You know, I remember we played my junior year. We played Hampton or Howard or someone in Bragg, and it was so much. Of course, trash talking on the field. The stands were always, you know, pretty into it, and the student section gets really into the game. And one of the boys, it was a week before the Florida Classic, and they said, "Boy, y'all are gonna get in a fight with Cookman." He said, "We've never seen two teams talk as much trash in a game, and their fan sections talk as much trash as we have with y'all." I said, "Man, that's like." You know, of course, the players got a different camaraderie. Like we'll talk trash and then still be cool, but you
Yeah.
know, that is it's different. You know, and you
Don't forget
know,
about that big light bulb up there in the sky either. When that sun's beaming down, it's something different too now.
hey,
It,
yeah,
it'll make you make some life choices on a 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Like it's pretty tough.
Tallahassee Heat is different too, Coach.
Yeah.
That is different, man.
Yeah,
It's
you got to get your mind right to go out for camp. When that camp starts in August, yeah, you got to get your mind right for that deal.
man, I'm low key jealous though, because when I was in college, we had 3 days sometimes,
Yeah.
and now we made no, actually we didn't have 3 days. We had 2 days, but we had weights in between,
Yeah.
and so it felt like 3 days, and we didn't have like a 2 a day, then a 1 a day, then a 2 a day. Like it was just straight 2 days for 3 weeks.
Yeah, it was tough.
Man, that thing was so tough, man. That made me second guess how much I love football. Man. Like my first 2 days, I had Coach Billy Joe, and I went into camp. I swear, I promise you, I went into camp 220. My freshman year, I came out 205.
Yeah.
I was about as lean as you can get. I ended up getting back up to like 210. And I think I ended up by the middle of the season, I was back up to like 215. But I never got back up to 220 until my sophomore year.
Yeah,
And
you talking about you wake up in the morning, I don't even know if I can make it back to this bed tonight. Like I may die out here, but you find a way to keep going, and it's definitely different now because now you can only have one practice. And shoot, I tell them all the time, man, y'all spoiled.
man, I remember Coach Charles Huff. He's at Clark now, and he was at DC. And Coach went off on us so bad for being tired the third week or 2 days in the morning before practice. Coach, I'm be honest with you, we were just trying to get every ounce of sleep that we could. If we had a 5-minute break, 4 of it was going to be a nap.
And there was no days off.
Oh man, it was tough, man.
By day 4, you was just dragging them around.
Oh, yeah, I got some stories, man. I think every college football player has stories about how it really figures that, like you figure out how much you love it though.
That's right.
And honestly, I wouldn't change it for anything. I'll go back and do it again, because I mean football is a different type of sport. But we're talking about FAMU and the success that you all have built this year. You all just missed the playoffs. Last year, you all, or 2 seasons ago, you all made the playoffs. But a lot of people are not familiar with that process. Can you talk about the FCS playoff selection process, because it's different than the FBS?
Yeah, a lot of that is out of my pay grade. What I do know, they take 24 teams, and there's a certain number of conferences, like they get automatic bids. So let's say that number is 12. Well, that means 12 of those conference champions get the automatic bid. That means they're looking for 12 more of the best 12 available. And don't hold me to the numbers. I'm not sure what the numbers are.
Right.
From there, they go into, I guess, a power rating or power ranking. So since our 2 champions, the SWAC and the MEAC, go to the Celebration Bowl, therefore we don't get the automatic bid. So we have to go in as a what's the word that they call it?
At-large.
An at-large bid. That's correct. At-large bid. And like I said, I'm not sure what the number actually is, but they didn't seem to think we were one of those teams that would get the at-large. So what we need to do is make sure we go to this dang Celebration Bowl and quit jacking around, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that.
But that's kind of how, in a nutshell, how that works. Kind of like what we're watching with basketball right now. So many teams are going to be going to get automatic bids, and the rest is at large. Now, like I said, what that number is, I'll be honest with you, I don't know. I coach defense, and I let Coach Simmons and the athletic directors fight all those battles. I know it was hard telling our guys we wasn't going to get in. I know that. So, like I said, we need to go ahead and quit messing around and get to this Celebration Bowl.
Yeah, I would love to go ahead and watch the Celebration Bowl is on ESPN, right? Is that ESPN?
It's that or ABC. It's one, but ABC's ESPN.
Yeah, yeah. So I love to watch that watch you all in that game this
Nah,
year.
you can be there.
Yes, sir. You right. But hey, quick question. If you had to give, wrapping up our interview, if you had to give players 5 tools to be successful in life or in football, it doesn't matter, what would you give them?
So number one would be believe in yourself. I think a lot of times we look and we see all these different things, different people doing great things, whatnot. But, the people that are great aren't as great as you think they are. Also, the people that aren't great aren't as bad as you think they are. You just got to believe in yourself and run your race, right? Like I said, I've been around some great players, and at the end of the day, what separates the great ones from the average ones is their work ethic. I use as an example all the time. Jared Davis. Jared Davis was a first round draft pick, right? But what people don't realize about Jared, he was, 185-pound 3-star linebacker that Florida took, and he turned himself into an absolute freak of nature. Of course, I tell my guys a story. It was June. It was in the summer, 9 o'clock on a Friday night. So what are most guys doing? They're going out, right? It's college town. Well, he's in there watching film of NFL linebackers trying to get, because he knew what he wanted in life, and that would probably be the second one, is know what you want. Now, are you tough enough to hang with it to get what you want, right? Because we're all going to get told no, right? Even the greatest of the greats been told no, but they were tough enough to keep taking the shots and keep battling for what it is they want. And then, that third thing would just be work. Just keep working. Don't worry about all the hoopla. Don't worry about Twitter. Don't worry about all the different things. Just keep working. Just keep working, because at the end of the day, God honors hard work. Fourth thing would be have fun with it, because life's too short to not have fun with it. And, we are going to work. We're going to do all we're supposed to do, but we're going to have some fun with it too. And then that fifth one, have faith. Have faith that God's going to meet you halfway. God, whatever God's got in store for you, He'll meet you halfway, but you got to put the work in to do it. So if I have 5, it would probably be it. And honestly, if I was talking to coaches, I'd do the same thing. Same thing. Because there's times we all feel like, man, this is never going to happen. This is never going to happen. But God will meet you halfway if you do the work, right?
Yes, sir. I like that. Yes, sir. You're exactly right. Um, when you start talking about the belief, that's one thing that I've been preaching to our kids and our staff is the belief system. And I'm a man of faith, so I believe the belief of a mustard seed will get it done.
That's right.
And of course, then you have to have the work behind it. I think the first, if you truly believe, you're naturally put in the work. If you don't believe, then you're not going to put in the work, and you kind of, like they say, faith without works is obsolete. So you can't really have that type of balance.
Well, and I think, I think God puts on your heart what he has in store for you is what he puts on your heart, right? It's what makes us all tick. So for me, like I think God has great things for me in football. Why? Because that's what makes me tick. If I get time off, I'm still involved. Like I don't know. I just had a week off and I went to South Carolina to watch practice for a couple of days, right? So I think God puts on your heart what it is he wants you to do. Sometimes we get frustrated and we say, man, it's never going to happen. And that's not what it is. What he's saying is it's not there yet. You just got to keep working because you're not ready for that just yet. And, I used my time back when I was at Alabama. I went and was working summer camp. And, when I was the head coach at Taylor, I had to do lunchroom duty, right? So the whole time I'm doing lunchroom duty, I'm like, man, this stinks. I'm sitting here watching. I don't want to do this. Well, when I was at Alabama, you know what I was doing during lunch? I was doing lunchroom duty. So, he was all those days in the lunch cafeteria at Taylor County High School was preparing me to work lunchroom duty at Alabama, right? And to help me stay around for a little bit longer. Or when I was in elementary PE teacher, I was doing field day. So we had camp going on. We had kids camp, and there's about 1,000 kids campers, and that's like herding cats when you get them 9-year-old, 10-year-old. They're all over the place, and they're trying to get them rounded up. So all of a sudden, I step up, hey, get over here. They all come and sit down. They're looking at me. I'm like, field day,
That's
so.
it.
So, like the things you're doing now, you don't always realize it, but it's preparing you for something down the road. And you just, like I said, got to meet you halfway. You just got to do the work.
Yeah, you started talking about elementary. I started off in elementary PE.
Greatest job ever. All they want to do is play, man. We used to play kickball, dodgeball, everything you can't play anymore. We played it those times.
Yeah, man, it was great. One thing I got to give a shout out to my mentor and teacher, Sam Hamilton, and then Coach Lisa Kelly. And coincidentally, all of us were Coach Hamilton, Coach baseball. Coach Kelly was a state championship basketball coach, and then I, of course, ended up coaching as well. But between the three of us, we always had about, I believe it was about 100 kids at a time.
Yeah.
And that's normal for PE. They'll stick 60 kids in PE if they could. But so we always we structured everything, and I really learned how to teach and coach in a manner that kids will understand, because it's the details at that age. And so I'm appreciative for them, because man, when I first started, when I got placed, first of all, when I got placed for my internship in elementary PE. Now, I remind you, I was still playing football. I was playing arena football at that time, so I was still working out, and I got up to like 238, and it was the closest thing to being. You remember Arnold Schwarzenegger in Kindergarten Cop or whatever?
Yeah.
That's what I felt like every doggone day. And then all of a sudden, like after 2 weeks, I remember the second day, kid just running up and giving me like a huge hug, and I'm like, you're looking down like, what? Why are you hugging me? Like,
Yeah.
but after about 2 weeks, and you get used to it, and then you start to really learn how to get them. Like you said, it's like herding cats, and so.
They're all over the place. Like,
all over the place. I had a kid go up to the top of the playground and jump, and intentionally did not. He belly flopped into a bed of mulch. And I've seen it on a movie, and I never thought that would actually happen in real life, and it did. I said, man, and I just sat there, and I looked at him. I was like, "Are you all right?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm good." And I'm like,
yeah, we did a fitness circuit, and of course it's August, and I mean it's hotter than who knows what, and they were piled up in the clinic from overheating, and my principal walked out, and he was the old band director, and he was he came, we ain't getting ready for Friday nights around here. Why don't you take them over there in the shade and let them play on the equipment? Play on the equipment for a little while. I was like, yes, sir, Mr. Montgomery, I got you. But
yeah. It was cool, Coach. I appreciate you taking this time to be on this live stream with me.
Man, I appreciate you for having me.
Coach, it's always great. And of course, I'll be by there sometime within the next week or so to watch you practice and be a bug in your ear. So I appreciate all of it.
Always welcome.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Have a blessed evening.
You too.
All right, buddy. Bye.
All right, that was Coach Ryan Smith, the defensive coordinator, associate head coach, and linebackers coach at Florida A&M University. Once again, this is the Coach's Corner. I'm your host and head football coach at Leon High School, Tyrone McGriff. I really appreciate all of you all joining me here tonight. Next week, we have another guest, the head coach at Edward Waters University, Coach Coach Morgan. We're extremely excited to have him on. It's going to be extremely fun. I look forward to it. I've been meaning to get up with Coach Morgan for a while. He's building a great program out there at Edward Waters. They're now a Division II school, and they're doing phenomenal things with the new field and so many other new additions. They got a couple of kids from Tallahassee on the roster as well, so I can't wait to talk to him. And then of course we're going to follow up with Coach Strong. After that, Coach Strong is down at Southeastern in Lakeland. Their NAIA program. I'm extremely excited to have all these coaches on and just get out. My players will be going to some campuses this week. I'm extremely excited about where we're going, the direction that the program is headed in, and I'm extremely excited to continue my education to become a better football coach. We have some great football coaches here in the area that I aspire to be like. We have a great legacy in this Tallahassee area, and I know all the coaches are going to do our due diligence to make the best product on the field. So thank you all. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate you. Good night, and I'll see you next week.